What up, WallStreet Bitch?
What's up, Hans?
Not much. It's been a while. Your mic's pretty high. Welcome to another episode of the Baptize Machine.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
This mic is sort of fucked up. Can y'all hear me out there?
All right, let's
Are we going live for this?
Yeah, we're live. Let's play our little intro. We got Heidi on today.
Did you make that?
Yeah, I made that.
Beautiful.
Hi Heidi, how's it going?
Hey, good. How you doing?
Good. I'm Hans. That's the WallStreet Bitch to my left.
Hey, Heidi, welcome.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah, how's your day going?
Yeah, pretty good. How about you guys?
Pretty good. It's really hot and smoky in Colorado right now. We got a lot of fires going on, but
Yeah,
good
so
other
many
than that.
fires.
Yeah.
Where are
man.
you from?
Yeah, I'm just outside of Portland. I'm technically in Washington, but yeah.
Oh, cool. Awesome.
Mhm.
I love Portland.
Oh, right on.
I've only been once, but it was just a cool place. Like the trees and the lakes.
It's pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, typically we like to have our guests give a little introduction to themselves.
Mhm.
So if you want to do that, that'd be great to start, and then we can kind of go from there.
All right. You just want me to do it blind, or is this edited or something?
No, we're raw. We don't edit.
Live right now?
I don't know if we're live. We might be.
Let's check.
This app is a little wonky sometimes, but we can go live. I'll make sure we're live right now on X or
Okay.
Twitter, whatever you want to call it.
Before we start, if you do want to outline anything or ask any questions, we can do that. We usually just sort of have a conversation, though.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, great.
Sure. Well, you let me know.
Yeah, let's just make sure we're going live. Then Hans will do a little introduction.
Okay, and now we are live on Twitter, X, whatever you may
right.
call it these days. So stop that. We're good.
All right, welcome everyone. We have Heidi. How do you pronounce your last name? Briones? Heidi Briones. She is a writer, and would you call yourself an internet personality, a political commentator? How would introduce yourself a little?
Political humorist. We'll go with that.
Political humorist. All right. Well, do you want to start, Heidi, just by giving a little background on yourself?
Yeah, sure. My name's Heidi. I live just outside of Portland. I actually ran for office as a Democrat in 2020. And since then, I've left the Democratic Party and the left and had a journey politically. And yeah, now I fight for women's rights, fight the radical trans agenda, and use humor to fight the culture war on X primarily. And I also write on my Substack at HeidiBriones.com.
Awesome. You know, it's interesting. I think I don't know if the movement has a name, but it's becoming a lot more okay publicly to speak out against trans women in sports. I'm noticing like a lot of really liberal left people are now coming out specifically because of what happened at the Olympics. Are you aware of that? The trans boxer.
Yeah, I am. That's not a transgender person though, but just to be clear. But yeah.
Yeah, they were born a woman, I think.
Well,
then why are people speaking out against it?
Well, no, they have XY chromosomes. It's a male. That's a male person, but they were told they were a female, basically.
Interesting.
Throughout their life, but it turns out they did a test and they have XY chromosomes, and possibly there was another test. I'm not fuzzy on that one that said they have elevated levels of testosterone. That was done, I think, at a different time. And they were kicked out of the league, out of I think it's called IBA, International Boxing Association, for a period of time, and then allowed back in.
Interesting.
So it's essentially a male person it's very complicated, that was told that they were female throughout their life, but they're producing high levels of testosterone and have XY chromosomes, probably because they have testicles, whether their testicles are outside their body or inside, which can happen, I guess.
Right.
That must be so confusing for that person.
Very weird situation, but they're not a transgender person, because that would assume that they thought they were a man.
Right,
and then
made a transition.
I want to be a woman, but that didn't actually happen. They actually thought they were a woman, I guess just like a freakishly like strong, woman, and then find out, oh, technically I'm actually a male, which should have disqualified, this person from playing, boxing rather, women. But that didn't happen, and then so you had the scene that happened. But I mean, it's definitely related to the trans women in sports argument. It's just this one's super tricky. It's a weird one.
Yeah, that is tricky. That's interesting, and I mean it's bringing a lot of new voices to the conversation, which I think is a good thing. So right now, in the Olympics, are trans women allowed to compete, or are they currently not? Do you guys know?
I have no idea.
I don't know, but I would wager no, that they're not supposed to if they're male, unless they have. Usually, what the rule is that you transition, and then after a certain period of time, when you don't have the high levels of testosterone, then they may consider that, okay, that's been long enough. They test the testosterone, and then they're like, your testosterone is at like a female level,
right?
And then now you can you can compete as a woman. That's like when they do allow it. So I'm guessing that's what they're going by, which tends to be the standard currently, but I'm not sure.
So can you tell us a little bit about your, I guess, political transition? Because I know a lot of people have gone through that. I guess you call it a transition in the last 4 years.
Yes,
because the Democratic Party has drastically changed. So what sort of brought you down that path?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in a family that was pretty hardcore Democrat. I considered myself a Democrat for a while until I went to college, and then I considered myself further left than that. I considered myself a leftist for quite some time, and then I sort of went a little apolitical for a while. I was just busy living my life and not super worried about politics, which was nice, even though I have a degree in politics. I do have a bachelor's in politics.
Cool.
But I got into traveling and teaching English and all kinds of other stuff. So I transitioned, again, my career to be like a teacher. And so I wasn't really super into it. And then I got back into politics, I guess in 2016, like regrettably, I supported Hillary's campaign that year, which was super cringe now.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
But yeah, I really bought into the idea that Trump was like this horrible person. And then I actually got back into politics pretty heavily with Andrew Yang's campaign. I thought it was super fun, and I was the Yang gang, and that's why I got on X. It was Twitter back then. And we were all the Yang gang, and it was super dorky, but it was fun. And he dropped out, and then people were kind of telling me I should run for office, so I ran as a Democrat, and I did pretty well. I came in second place. But what happened during that period was COVID. I was running in the middle of COVID, and I was just disgusted at the way the Democrats behaved during COVID towards people that didn't want the vaccination, for example. The draconian policies around masks. They went full authoritarian in Oregon. Everything was shut down. Gyms, restaurants. I think half of the top restaurants in Portland got shut down.
Yeah.
I actually have a book that's called Best Portland Dates or something, and I ordered it, and it came. And the first part of the book is they're like, we're really sorry, but most of these places are probably closed now, because we wrote this book in 2019 and it got printed in 2020. And sure enough, you can't even really use the book. Oregon restaurants. Yeah.
Oregon was one of the strictest states, right? I mean,
oh yeah, Governor Brown was just crazy. She basically had a mandate all over the whole state. Kids were out of school the entire time. So I was just like, this is insane. And that turned me off, definitely from the Democrats, right away. And I thought, well, maybe I'm a leftist, actually. Maybe I'm not a Democrat. Maybe I just hate the Democrats. But then I was like, oh no, I'm not a leftist. They were way too crazy, and even crazier than when I was in college. When I was in school, being a leftist, we were just pretty much anti-war. It was the early 2000s, and we were just anti, Iraq war. We were just no, F that stuff. We were pretty libertarian, actually. That was more what it meant to be a leftist to me. And just against authority, really. But that's not what the left is now. They're very authoritarian, very much like, we're going to tell you what to do. We're going to tell you what to think. We're going to tell you everything, pretty much. So,
and pro-war too. I mean,
well,
that's
I don't
the
know
way
about the
it
left. I would say
seems.
the left is still anti-war, but what they've gotten wrong is the social issues, the radical trans agenda. They really got sucked into that.
Yeah.
And then I realized, oh wait, like, it's all Marxism, and I don't actually agree with that. When I actually sat down and thought about it, I'm like, no, I'm actually a libertarian. So that was where I came to. And then also like the gun issue, which is another thing too, trying to get a gun. Is very difficult because of laws that are established by Democrats all across the country. And I don't think that that's right. Being a woman and being a lesbian, so a woman with another woman, it's pretty important that I have a gun, or that I have access to be able to get, like a gun whenever the hell I want, and have as many as I want, or have whatever ammo I want to have. I think that's totally acceptable for people to have. And when I was put in that situation, like, when I've been put in situations where, like, I had this weird neighbor who was basically kind of like weirdly stalking us, and we wanted to go and get a gun, and I was like, oh, it's like way harder than I thought. I'm like, I thought it was super easy to get a gun, just in my head, because that's what the Democrats tell you, right? They're like, it's so easy to get a gun.
Yeah, right.
It's like so crazy. You don't even need a background check and all this stuff, and you just go and grab one. And I found out that's not the case.
Yeah, especially in Oregon, I would think they're like a little more I guess open to gun law, because I view Oregon as sort of like Vermont, like they're sort of out there, anti-government control, but I guess that's not really the case.
It is, except in Portland. I mean,
I see.
So I was in Portland, and everything goes by the county with things like permits and all of that stuff. So yeah, so that's what I learned. I learned that I just didn't want to be an authoritarian. So I pretty much moved and been on the libertarian side, and I am supporting Trump in this election, because I think we have to block Kamala. And the Democratic Party has just completely lost it. And I really think that they're trying to push a socialist revolution at this point. So
really?
I can't support that. And we have to fight against it.
Do you have any possible concerns about Trump being elected?
I mean, not major ones, because he's already been in office for 4 years.
Yeah.
So I don't have any like existential concerns, or like I think like he'll do anything horrible. I just think he's not going to be able to be as effective.
Yeah, my only two concerns are like he's bringing religion a little too much into politics for me recently. And then the other concern is that, he gave that speech recently where he's like, oh, vote for me and you'll never have to vote again. So that's just a little weird.
Well, that's not what he meant exactly, though. But yeah. I think that he was talking to Christians specifically and saying, Christians, I know you guys don't like to vote. Some of you don't vote. He's basically saying, but you should come out and vote for me this time. And then if you don't want to vote again, that's fine. You can not vote again. That's what he was saying.
Yeah, like, come out for this election. I'll fix everything so that in the future you can just sort of sit back.
Yeah, he's like talking to apolitical Christians, because a lot of Christians don't like to vote. They think that's against God. It's like, that's not their business.
Yeah, for me, the insane amount of truth twisting and taking out of context that the media did to Trump, I guess the first two elections, I thought he was an absolute terrible piece of shit. He infuriated me. And then I started actually doing my due diligence, listening to him and both sides, and I realized, like, holy shit, this is a complete fugazi. And it's sad to see a lot of people are still totally wrapped up in that way of thinking. And I don't know how it gets better. I mean, like, social media, I think, helps a little bit, but it also makes it worse.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're in an interesting time politically. I think the next few months are gonna get pretty crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's like my Super Bowl, so I'm in a way I'm happy about it, but it is scary. I mean, it's like you don't know what's gonna happen around each corner, but it is exciting. It's probably like the best time to be a political commentator.
That's true.
But it'll get wild. It's gonna get wild, and there's probably gonna be more than a few surprises in the next 90 days for sure.
Yeah, I heard a conspiracy floating around that, if the media and whoever says that Kamala wins, Speaker Trump's gonna, protest the results of the election, and then Speaker Johnson will agree with Trump, and then it'll go up to the Supreme Court and make Trump president. So he has a path to victory, possibly even without winning the Electoral College.
We'll see. That would be pretty wild, and that would probably result in a lot of rioting. I mean, almost definitely there would be cities burned. Like if it comes down to that. So hopefully not. Hopefully there's a clear victory. Obviously I hope for Trump, but I hope for the country. I hope one way or another. I hope that it's not too crazy.
I hope whoever wins by a significant amount, so it's hard to for either side to contest.
Yeah, it's not looking that way right now.
But... No, not at all. It's looking very close.
Yeah, it's looking like it's going to come down to probably Pennsylvania, or I don't know. I don't know about Georgia this time, but yeah, the swing states for sure.
Mm-hmm. So is your prediction I know it's impossible to predict, but are you predicting a Trump victory? Because I know before Biden dropped out, it looked like it was going to be an absolute landslide, but everything has changed with Kamala, or so it seems.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be a resounding Trump victory when Biden was in there. It seemed like that's the way it was going, but with Kamala, she's raised a lot of money. There's a lot of commercials going on. There's a lot of, whether you think it's real or fake, excitement happening, and she's creeped up there. I mean, if you look at where Biden was in the polls just a few weeks ago to where Kamala is now, and whether you believe the polls or not is a different issue, but it certainly seems like it's extremely close. And when I do polls all the time on my X account. It's always super close.
Really?
And you see other people that do polls. I mean, as long as they have a decent audience, it's getting at least 3,000 or so votes. It's usually pretty divided. So
interesting.
Yeah, I've seen that just 50-50. I've seen a lot of 50-50s. Kamala Trump, which seems crazy to me because who wants Kamala? I thought nobody would like her. She's so disliked. She couldn't even win the primary in 2020.
I know. Do you think her support is shallow or fake? Because I sort of get that feeling too, just because it's so produced and sort of came out of nowhere. I feel like Trump has people who will actually come to the polls, whereas Kamala has people who might post about her, but when it comes down to it, are all of them going to come out?
Like Bernie Sanders had that energy, similar energy to Trump on the other side too. But
yeah, we'll see. I mean, a lot of it comes down to money, and I do think she's raised an insane amount of money. I think definitely over 200 million since she announced, which is just wild, and it's not even official yet because there hasn't even been the convention. But her commercials are everywhere. There's so many PACs coming together. So that does tell me something, because that does motivate older people in cities, that are constantly getting bombarded with ads, to be excited again. And they weren't excited about Biden because he was not exciting. I mean, he's half dead.
Yeah. I wish we had some campaign finance laws that limited the amount, corporation or individuals could donate, so then we could actually have more of a will of the people rather than will of the few.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's something I advocated for when I ran for office. There should be some limitations, but I mean, it's so tough because you have these PACs. You have to get rid of the super PACs because they're able to run commercials. Most of the commercials aren't done by these politicians. They're done by the PACs that are we support this politician and we got all this money from all these large donors because we're not a campaign and we're not so you got to get rid of that. You got to get rid of the super PACs and that kind of a thing. But it's tough. People don't want to do that because that's how they win elections. So nobody votes to get rid of that stuff because they're well, that's how I won my election. I'm not going to vote against that.
Yeah.
So what are your top 3 I guess, issues that you really feel strongly about or that you're really involved in, would you say? Or are you sort of more like a generalist?
Sure. I mean, I definitely women's rights, just keeping men out of women's spaces, such as women's sports, for example. Bathrooms, not mutilating girls. It's mostly girls, but children in general. Not transitioning kids. Just the radical trans agenda is definitely up there as one of the top issues that I'm, trying to fight.
Do you get a lot of hate and pushback for that? Because
oh yeah,
really,
yeah.
Is it changing, or are you feeling like you're getting more support recently? Because I feel like the tide is sort of changing. I could be wrong.
I mean, there's been, like Matt Walsh's documentary, What is a Woman? And there's been prominent conservatives speaking out, on the issue. I mean, they come at it from a different perspective than I might, but they come at the issue. And so that brings more awareness, acceptance of what's going on. But yeah, of course, I still do get a lot of hate. I just kind of ignore it now because it's too important. It's too important of an issue. So that's definitely up there. And one reason why I'm supporting Trump, because I know that he's not, gonna be down with that kind of stuff, or at least, fight stronger against it than Kamala would. They would just go full in trans rights. And you've seen it in the Biden administration. They invite all kinds of trans activists, into the White House and on their staff. And it's just like they're totally embracing it completely. And I don't see that Trump would do that. I think he's way more moderate on the issue. And, I don't think he's not even far right on the issue, but he's just like further right enough to be like, this is like, we're not going to let this happen. So I think that that's super important. And then after that, gun rights, like Second Amendment. I don't think Trump's perfect on that at all, but I do think he's better than the Democrats. So, that's what we're working with. And beyond that, it's like probably economic issues. Like I prefer we have no tax. I've come to that conclusion that taxes just hurt everybody all around. So I would prefer we have none, but the Republican Party is at least like willing to cut taxes substantially. We'll still have too many, but we'll have less, under Trump, like we did before. We had less regulations and less taxes under Trump.
And so do you have any aspirations to run again?
No, I don't think so. My wife doesn't really want me to do that.
Yeah, I guess
and I don't really want to do it. It's very stressful.
It's a big commitment.
And then you become a public figure. Technically, I'm a public figure now, so people are allowed to like come at me with all kinds of crazy stuff just because I ran for office one time.
Wow.
I'm out there, but then when you run again, then it's like you invite all that bad juju into your life. So if I'm not 100% sure I could win, but it's very difficult in this climate unless you have a ton of money to win an election.
Do you know like anything about the history of the trans movement? How has it I guess gotten so much steam recently, and the involvement of kids? Like where did this all come from?
Well, I mean, if you want to talk about how long transsexuals, used to be called transsexuals, have been part of the LGBT movement, that came about, I want to say early 90s, 80s, late 80s. There was a whole discussion around, well, should we include the T or shouldn't we? And overall, gay and lesbian activists decided yes, mainly because they really had nowhere to go, and it's such a small percentage of people. And so it was like, hey, you guys don't have anywhere to be or anywhere to go, and you can hang out with us. It was kind of like that sort of a thing, because it just wasn't like a massive issue. It was just considered to be actual genetic issue called gender dysphoria. You have gender dysphoria, and that's a real thing. And then this helps alleviate that. And then you actually go through the whole process, medically transitioning. And then, you are the other sex, essentially. That's why they called it transsexual. So what happened is it became transgender. Like, it became a gender issue because gender is something that's more fluid, and they're able to use that term a bit more loosely. That happened, I want to say, like early 2000s. They started moving to that term. And it's really like a postmodernist, Marxist type of thing that's happening where you're redefining words, you're changing the meaning of words, they're controlling the language, and it's completely, Marxist, it's completely socialist, and it's like we don't have a concept of what's real or what's the truth. We make up that as we go, kind of a thing, and we get to decide what that is. So that sort of thing has been seeded into the gay community for a while, and then it really escalated after gay marriage because all of the money for gay activism going to HRC, GLAAD, these other organizations was being funneled into gay marriage. It was all gay marriage for over a decade. And then when the Supreme Court ruled on that, they had to do something with all this money, all this energy, all these people, all these organizations. They moved to the transgender issue. It's extremely profitable. You have a lot of people with money who want to do this and want to, put their money into it. And how it moves to kids is really, that's just really just kind of sad because it's, unfortunately, you can really like infiltrate and make kids believe whatever you want, right?
Yeah.
And that's where you're at, is they want to get to people younger and younger. They really want to create kind of this army of like, it really is like to create like an ideological or even real army of, soldiers for the cause. If you get someone when they're a kid and you tell them you're born in the wrong body, let's fix that. They're so attached to that ideology. You have to think about that for the rest of their life. It's so hard for my friends that are detransitioners to deal with life. I have, friends that have detransitioned and they have a really hard time socially, mentally, intellectually. So they really just want to ideologically grab onto people as young as possible. And what's sick about it is big pharma and the medical industry makes a ton of money as well. So there's just so much more money to be made on something like transgenderism than gay marriage or any other gay issue.
Do you think there's a specific group of people or individuals who are like who's the money behind this movement? Like, or is it kind of more dispersed? Or is there like kind of someone like, this is our mission and I'm going to help fund you to spread the word of it, and, fund doctors to get training to do these gender operations or whatnot?
Well, the money, finds itself. The money comes from insurance companies and all of that. Insurance companies just have to basically say they'll cover transgender issues, which starts at the state level. Typically, the states will rule, yeah, that's included under medical care, and then the insurance companies will add it because the state said they have to, and now the doctors are like, well, okay, and people are like, okay, it's paid for by my insurance. So that's just, that's part of it. But the people that are advocating for those state laws to be changed are trans activists. Those are, wealthy or powerful people that have an agenda, or it's a conglomerate of people from these organizations I mentioned, such as HRC. If you're donating to HRC for decades and decades because you're a gay or lesbian person that thinks they're doing good things for you, part of that money goes to causes like that. So like, we're working on trans rights now, protect trans kids. And those groups have a lot of money. So they change the laws.
Yeah. Do you think there are cases of people who are transgender where it's like they are making the right decision to transition, or in general, are people making a mistake when they decide that?
As long as they're an adult and they've had, a real medical evaluation that they have actual gender dysphoria and they've explored, other options first, and they've actually gone through an entire, course of therapy, then I think that could be the right decision for a very small percentage of people. And I think that that's okay in those situations. Not something that I would ban. I certainly don't think any children should be making permanent decisions like that. It's definitely an adult decision because it's not something you can take back.
Yeah, like I'm totally in support of, transitioning. I think the surgery aspect of it has to be really taken seriously, and like normalizing it so much leads people to make rash decisions that they might regret. But I'm curious about the detransitioners because you said some of them.
Yeah.
Why don't we hear from them in the public as much? Are their voices stifled? Are there not that many of them? Or are there a lot of people? And I feel like they have a really important message, especially for kids who are thinking about doing this.
Yeah.
Just because of how, it's a life-changing decision. So is it common?
I wouldn't say it's common necessarily. I mean, but there are a growing number of detransitioners. They typically are mostly female. It's mostly, they transition to be a boy or a man, and then they want to go back, and identify as a woman. It's mostly on that side of it, but there are, as well on the other side as well, there are definitely transitioners that go the other way. But there's a few things going on there. There's there's Chloe Cole, my friend Maya as well. Those are the ones I could think of off the top of my head. There's a lot in the UK as well, and we are trying to elevate their voices 100%, but it's tough. They need more funding. They need to be able to go out and speak to young people, which is difficult to do. The young people are getting pro-trans education, like in schools, in their mental health facilities, and to be able to infiltrate that's very difficult, but they are trying. And I would say that there's an alarming number of detransitioners. I don't know if I think any is kind of alarming,
Yeah.
Try.
Yeah.
So, but I think that there's like a growing number. So I don't know the exact percentages. That's really hard to track and to have data on. A lot of people will detransition, not tell anybody. It's very complicated. But yeah, there's a lot, and a lot reach out to me, and I've talked to them, and it's mostly females, some males as well. And so it's just a very sad thing, because they're sucked into it when they're young. The parents are told that that's what's going to save their life. A lot of times they do it, and then they become an adult and they're like, what did I do? I actually want to maybe have a family, or whatever I want to do, and now I can't do it.
Yeah, I wonder if that like correlates with the high risk of suicide among trans people too, because then they regret the decisions they made and they don't know that there's a way to detransition or go back.
Yeah, it's even if you just socially transition, like my friend Maya is just socially transition, and that's still difficult.
How would you define that? Just a social transition?
Like that'd be like you don't have any medical intervention. So you just say, like, if I were to say I identify as a man now and wear male clothing, or cut my hair, those types of things, you're just going to go by a male name, but you don't do anything medically, but you do change your whole identity. And so that can still be very jarring for people to be like, yeah, you have to come out, tell everybody like I'm a man now, and then like a few years later, just kidding, I'm not anymore. I mean, that can still be jarring and like difficult for somebody to handle.
Yeah, I feel like they have a really important perspective that needs to be taught to kids and considered by kids, especially now that like I think California and some other states are taking away parents' power to be involved in this whole process.
That's wild.
Which is scary. Yeah, I think California just passed some kind of law where the parent doesn't have to be involved.
Yeah, there's a lot of states. I mean, there's cases of, I think it was Montana, even in red states too. It's not just blue states. In red states, it can happen. I think it was in Montana. There was a kid that was taken from their parents and moved to a different state where they could get transgender surgery because their parents wouldn't approve it.
What's their reasoning for that?
Because they say it's that they'll kill themselves if they don't get it. They say it's life-saving medical intervention.
I see.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, and like you said, kids are so impressionable. I've noticed just a big change in the rhetoric, redefining words, saying like even if someone is biologically a woman or a man, people will say, this is a man. They are a man. And someone talking to them will be like, well, I'm talking about their biology. And they'll say, no, like they won't separate it at all. They won't even acknowledge that there is a difference, which I think is just strange, because why not acknowledge it if you're talking about the biology? But anyway, I just feel like that goes down a dark path, because then you are redefining words, and a kid growing up with that, I think it would just be confusing. So
yeah,
anyway,
it's super confusing. I mean, and then you have the mothers who do this to their kids, and then what now they're so involved in this ideology, you know, it's hard to back out when you've done that. Like you have a little boy, for example, and you transition him. You know, you can't get that boy's parts back for him, and that's your son.
Yeah.
And then if they change their mind, they're going to blame you, or, you know, or you just have to double, triple down on it all the time and be like, I made the right call no matter what. So then you have all these adult women who are like maybe millennials or, you know, maybe a little older, but they're like so involved in this ideology now because otherwise they have to admit that they totally ruined their child's life.
Yeah.
Right.
I actually used to be a teacher too, and I was teaching middle school at the time, and I had a 6th grade boy who I was trying to be respectful, like, what are your pronouns at the beginning of the semester? And he goes, I'm on a ask me each class basis. So like each day he came into class not knowing if he was a he, she, a they, them.
Oh my.
So I was like, I'm just gonna call you by your name.
Yeah.
And then they changed their name to like a totally like androgynous, like weird. It was Shadow. It was the name change.
Wow.
Not that. Yeah, it was very, very kind of weird experience.
It just must be so confusing for kids, because when I was a kid, I didn't know what it felt like to be a boy or a girl, or I just was myself. You know what I mean? Like, what does that even mean? So then you have to. They start thinking about it, and like, I could easily see how you can get totally confused, and when all your friends are doing it and your parents are pressuring you, it's just, yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
it's important. I think it's important that you're elevating the detransitioners perspective, because you need to hear both sides of the story.
Yeah, absolutely.
Heidi, who are you? Who would you do you think? Sorry, I was fumbling my words. Kamala will pick for her VP. Any insight there? I know there's like the list of those 5 people, but I don't know if you think she's leaning towards someone or top 2.
Probably Buttigieg.
I
But
hope
I'm not
not.
sure. But that would seem to make sense. I mean, even though he's gay, he's a white guy from the Midwest, technically. So,
yeah, he's a good speaker too.
He is a good speaker, and she sucks at speaking, so that could definitely help her a lot to have him introduce her. He's got the Obama voice.
Yeah, I was hoping for Tim Walz, but usually what I want never happens in politics. So,
are you happy with JD Vance as a pick, or do you think that was sort of a fumble?
I think it's okay. It wasn't like a complete fumble, but I think it's okay. I think it was kind of like a meh pick from my perspective. I mean, I would have liked him to see him go with like a Vivek or a Tulsi, like somebody a little more exciting that could
Tulsi would be
totally
awesome.
agree.
Yeah.
I totally agree. If he picked Tulsi or Vivek,
it'd be so exciting right now. I mean,
people would be pumped.
I feel like
they have huge followings.
Yeah, I feel like if he picked a woman, it would help him a lot too. But
it would have.
He didn't know. Yeah,
they obviously didn't know, and that's why they did it the way they did it. You know, they're playing the game like 10 billion steps ahead. You know, like they have everything planned out and all these different like different routes that they can take depending on what happens. And that's what they decided to do is bring in Kamala because it's hard to go against the women of color. That's very powerful, and so it's 2 white dudes now against a woman of color, and we don't know who she's going to pick. But
how orchestrated do you think Biden's dropout was?
Seems very orchestrated.
It all felt weird. I feel like it was planned out months in advance.
We should rename our podcast to 2 Black Chicks and see if we get more listeners then.
I like that, David.
It's just us, like 2 white guys.
Well, Heidi, is there anything else you want to touch on, or I'm trying to think.
Do you cover international politics at all?
Like, a little bit. Depends on the issue. I don't really like to touch Israel-Palestine because it's just too much. But
apparently, like Iran's about to bomb the shit out of Israel, so we might be in World War III soon.
I hate getting into that stuff. It just gets like there's nobody that wins, and everybody hates everybody, and it's just so awful,
Mm-hmm.
Any kind of like religious conflict, and anything in the Middle East is just. It's just horrible. Like, I know about it. I do have my views, and basically, I'm anti-war. So
same here.
I mean,
that's why people need to vote for Trump. I think.
Well, I think Kamala's more anti-Israeli war than Trump might be. Actually, she's because like him and Biden were pretty much the same on it.
Wait, Trump?
No, Kamala, I think she was kind of like, gave Netanyahu like the middle finger
yeah,
passively.
Trump's a bit more pro-Israel, but
he's less Ukraine
Kamala,
war,
and
probably.
then they're more pro-war in general. But I would say Trump is more pro-Israel, but they're more pro-war. So it's kind of like
Trump also just will sway with whatever's the most popular thing. So he might change his mind on that.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
I mean, he's definitely pro-Taiwan, which is really important. So I know that. I mean, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure that if Trump doesn't get in there, that China may make some kind of move on Taiwan at some point. So, but with Trump in there, they would not. So we'll see.
So do you think that if Trump was in office, do you think Russia would have invaded Ukraine?
I don't think so.
You don't?
I don't think so. I think
because
that yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say the view on the left and sort of the public view is that Trump's foreign policy was a disaster, and countries' leaders didn't respect him and all that stuff. But I think it was sort of the opposite, and
yeah.
Sometimes I go back and forth. I don't really know, but it's interesting. I would love to, be able to see back into the future and see if Russia would have done it, because I think you're right. I don't think they would have.
I don't think so, because he's so willing to talk to anybody, and that's very important. And that's something that the left, or the Democrats at least, will not do. Yeah, and so he had a good relationship. Good. I mean, it's like, good enough with Putin that I think he would have been able to make a deal. That's his whole thing. He can make deals. I mean, he's the master negotiator. He's a master marketer, but he's also more of a master negotiator. He's like great at sales. And so I think he really would have been able to, broker some type of deal to keep that from happening. So I don't think his foreign policy is perfect, but I do love that he's willing to talk to anybody, and he's willing to talk to any leader and figure it out. And he loves making deals, so it gives him an opportunity to test his negotiation skills and see what he can get done. And he just loves that. So I think that's something really important to have. Whereas who's calling the shots right now?
Seriously,
like nobody. Nobody's at the helm. Nobody's steering the ship, and it must be the deep state, because you have who else is going to be doing it? Kamala's campaigning now. Biden's half dead. I mean, who's running things? Like, we don't know. So I mean, I'd rather have Trump, who maybe he has some ego, and he's like bombastic, but at least he's willing to get his hands dirty and go talk to people.
Yeah, and Biden hasn't talked to Putin in, I think, over a year, which is absolutely terrifying.
Yeah, what are you doing?
Yeah, I recently listened to an interview with, I think, Mike Lee, the senator, and he had some shocking stories about Biden and Biden's cognitive ability from like 2019 or 20. So he's been totally gone for basically his whole term, which is like so
I believe
up.
it. And he wasn't even that smart before that, so
Yeah.
I mean, even peak Biden wasn't like he was not like considered a genius or anything. He was, he was always very mediocre. He was a very mediocre politician, throughout. I mean, and he made some horrible calls throughout too. His legislative history is horrible, like horrible votes, horrible bills. So I was just shocked that they even like put him up, and it's really just it's your turn, and it's somebody that won't go against the DNC, won't go against what the party wants.
Yep. Well, I'd love to stay in touch as the election moves forward. Have you back on to talk about any new exciting things that happen.
Yeah, okay. we're about to have Rob Loggia on, who is John McAfee's campaign manager.
Wow.
When he ran as a libertarian, but we haven't talked to him since John passed away, so it should be interesting.
Okay, that'll be fun.
Yeah.
Heidi, when that comes up.
Yeah, we will. It was really fun talking to you,
and
too. We'll post this everywhere in the next day or two. So
do you want to shout anything out? Maybe your Substack or.
You can follow me at Heidi Briones on X, or you can go to HeidiBriones.com and sign up for free to follow my Substack and keep in touch. And I'd love to see you out there.
All right, thanks so much, Heidi. Have a great rest of your day. Yeah, bye.
Okay, bye.
I like her.
Yeah, she's a great guest. That's episode 40, dude.
Wow.
The revival.
Wait, did we start from 0 at the beginning?
Yeah, when we restarted. So technically we probably have like 90 or like 70 episodes now. I think we had like 30 before.
Once we get big, we'll have to break out the old episodes. I found them on my old computer. And we'll do like a revival.
A re-release.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's episode 40. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Baptize Machine.
Thank you. I'm excited to talk to Rob. He was always our best episodes, dude. Well, maybe not best, but
yeah,
he was like
we're still alive right now. But yeah, next guest is Rob Logio. It'll be out soon.
Tune in.
Oh, this is our outro by Ohio Walks.
Ohio Walks, baby.
Oh, Pickle Walks. Sorry.
Or Grand Daniel. Wow. Dude, I think live streaming. And I sing to the ones within me. And I sing to the ones without.
Thank you.